Hey world, today I want to discuss which I think is a very big need of the hour right now, especially from parenting perspective, leadership perspective, and of course teaching perspective. These three professions I strongly believe shapes the future and shape the life of every boy and girl. See, it's a long time back I read. When I'm talking about a long time, I think around uh, 25 years back I read one beautiful book called Prophet by Khalil Gibran. In that he writes one of the line. He said, "Children are like arrows, and the parents are like bow. From the bow, the arrows are released in the future. Now, arrows are the future. Children are the future. Parents come from a background of minimum of 20 to 25 years. That is where age somebody becomes a parent, keeping a very average age of let's say 23, 25. 2 decades later, they become parent. Now, the speed at which the world is growing so fast, what the world we lived 10 years ago and what we are living today is changed a lot. Now, my son Arya, who's now going to turn 20 in this January, 2 decades he has spent in this world. Another 5, 6, 7 years, let's say he'll get married, and 2 more, 3 more years. So, by the age of 28, 30, he will become a parent, which means 3 decades he has lived. Now, in these 3 decades, you and me know, I have witnessed this 30 years. I have witnessed 50 years. He will witness 30 years by the time he become a parent. In 3 decades, the world would have changed so much. And if Arya start teaching his children how he grew up as a child 30 years back, will it be fair? Because 30 years later, think about from now, 10 more years later, when Arya becomes father, in 30 years of his life, 3 decades of life, the world would have changed so much because you and me have witnessed in last 10 years only the world has changed so much because of technology, because of science, because of so many things. So if Arya starts teaching his children when 10 years later he becomes a father, that is how I grew, that is how I grew. But he grew in a different time and his child will grow in a different time. Similarly, don't you think I grew in a different time? I became a parent when I was 31. So how I grew 30 years back, if I keep teaching Arya the same thing, I'm actually repeating the history that has happened to me, happened with me. Is it fair? What I try to make all of us understand is this: let's not confine our children to our own learnings and teachings because they're born in another time. 2.5 decades later, averagely every child is born. See, there was a time 30 years ago or way back 30 years, life was moving at a slow pace. So a culture could remain, or a trend could remain, or a um, cult could remain for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. So the speed at which we were growing was very slow. Snail pace this world was growing, especially our country was growing. So we could actually carry forward the past in the present because what happened 10 years ago will happen same now only. But in last 2.5 decades, after the IT revolutions and after the computerization of digital world, globalizations, so many things have happened, and the speed at which the world is growing is tremendous. From the business perspective to education to the fashion to the trend, everything is growing so fast, which means every 2, 3, 4 years things are changing. Who uses cassette? I grew up hearing music on the cassettes. My dad would have heard on a gramophone record. My son doesn't even know what is called a gramophone record. For him, it is a vintage item. And in last 10 years only we have seen there are no cassettes, there are no DVDs, there are no VCDs, there are no CDs, there are no plasma discs, there is no pen drives also now. Within just last 5 years, so much has changed, which means uh, today the child is almost born with a mobile. He knows how to use everything. A 2 year or 3 year old knows how to use YouTube and every other channel. So our children are born into a different time. We were born in different time, and the struggle between parents and children, or leaders and the followers, or the teachers and the student, the struggle is this gap. This gap is huge, and this gap is going to keep widening with the times to come. In fact, it's the other way around. If really want to be a great parent or a teacher or a leader, we have to learn from our children the latest trend, and maybe we have to update ourselves, upgrade ourselves, or change ourselves as parent. What is called new age parenting to this new age children. We cannot have old age parenting for a new age children. A very beautiful song in that movie, Dil Chata Hai. Uh, in that one beautiful statement, that one very beautiful lyrics is there inside. हम हैं नए अंदाज क्यों हो पुराना. I'm not saying don't talk about the roots. Roots cannot be changed. The culture, the tradition, the religion that you and me come from, it is the roots of the entire thing. That will not be changed. The truths of anything can never be changed with the time. They will remain. The truth are always eternal learnings. But the way to teach, the way to take it to the world at a contemporary style, it can be parenting, it can be teaching, it can be leadership. It has to be very contemporary, which means it has to be a, you may not like the word as a parent or a teacher. Are you a modern teacher? Are you a modern leader? Are you a modern parent? Or your parenting is still old age style? Oh, that is how you were brought up. That is how the parenting style was there. That is how were the times when you were born. 30 years back, I was 50 years back when I was born. This country was very different. The culture very different. Everything was very different. The trend, the fashion, everything has changed. Roots will not change. The truths of life will not change. But I think the presentations has to be very contemporary, very modern. This gap has to be reduced. The lesser the gap between parents and children, the lesser the gap between. I'm not saying no gap at all. There has to be a gap, a very friendly gap, very healthy gap between the leader and the follower. Something as simple as the follower or the one who's working in the organization and the leader, 30% difference, I understand. He has to catch up 30% all the time. But if it is going to be a 125% gap between parent and a child, it's going to be a very struggling parenting for any one of us. So let's not confine our children to our own learnings, because our children are born in different time zone, different time period, different era, and we were born in different decade, different era altogether. If you can reduce it, nothing like it. If you don't, I think there will be a lot of struggle in parenting, in teaching, and in leadership. So that believe that all of us as parents, as teachers, and as leaders will keep, instead of bringing children back to the history, if we can move to the future by learning the latest ideas, ways, techniques, methods to parent and lead and teach, I think we'll do a great service to the future generation. With that belief, let's start this beautiful day. Here we go. So guys, go get set and grow.